Before we can start using functions on StreamNative hosted, we need to prepare our cluster. You may need to contact StreamNative tech support to enable functions, and once that's complete, we can continue with the process. So here I am in the console, and on the left side, I've selected service accounts. We're going to create a new account under which the functions are going to run. And I don't want this to be a super admin on our cluster. So I'm going to try and enable some of the minimum permissions required. So here on the service account page, I'm going to click on create service account, and we'll say my functions service account. You can choose whatever name you want. Under admin type, make sure that super admin is unselected. So here's what it looks like unselected. This would be selected. Super admin again is for a cluster admin, and that's not what we want to use here. So my function service account and click confirm. If you want, you can download the key file here, but that's not the key file we're going to be using in the next steps. Instead, what I need to continue on and creating the service account binding and to add some permissions is I need an account that is an admin to continue on with this process. So while I'm not going to use the key file for my function service account now, I'm still going to download it because I'm going to need it in some later steps. I'm also going to download my personal key file for my admin account. So over here, my account is set to true for admin. So I'm going to go ahead and download that key file. That's the one I'm going to be using in the next step. Now that we've created our service account, we need to create our service account binding, and that is done using snctl. To install snctl on your machine, I suggest going to this website here, which I have a link after the video. And then here on the far right, I went to install snctl on Mac OS, but you may need to use a slightly different machine, obviously. I used Homebrew, but here's the curl command. Homebrew, for me, I do brew tap streamnative, brew install snctl. And once you have snctl installed, you need to create your init file. Scrolling down, that command is here, snctl config init. And then I don't need to configure any further settings besides those that are default. So at this point, we're now ready to attempt to connect to our cluster using snctl. Now that we've created the service account and you've installed snctl, here we can see in terminal, if I just run snctl, you'll get to the help menu for the snctl command. We're going to be connecting to our server using snctl using an admin account, not the service account, because we need to create the binding. I've created a new folder on my desktop called My Files, and inside of that folder, I've placed the key file for the admin account that I'm going to use to connect. Over here in terminal, I've also moved into the desktop folder, and then I'm going to use a relative path in my snctl command to access this key file. After the video, this command is pasted in as well, but I'm going to use snctl auth activate service account, and then pooleMemberRef, and then the service account I need to connect with, so that's my admin account, and an absolute path to the key file that I'm going to use to connect. So if I do /my files / and then the name of the file, qmcug, and once we connect to the server, it should say logged in as, and it should have the name of your admin service account. Now that we're connected, you can check a few things just to make sure it's working. You can do snctl API resources. This is a list of the resources that are available on your server. And then we're going to check just two of them real quick. One of them is snctl get pulsarcluster. It's going to list all of our instances, and you have to provide it with the org name. So -n oqmcug is my org name inside of the StreamNative, and it should list all of our instances. So I have an instance called training, and then also snctl get pulsarclusters, and again the namespace inside of StreamNative. So this isn't the Pulsar namespaces, this is the StreamNative namespace, which is your org, and it should list all of your clusters. So I have an instance called training and also a cluster inside of that instance that's called training. You can also list out all of your service account bindings. I already have a few, so I'm going to say snctl get service account bindings. And again, the org. And I should have 3 here already, but we're going to create a new one now for the service account that we just created. To create that service account binding, we first need our pool member. So if I do snctl get pulsarcluster and then your cluster name and your org, so for me again, qmcug and oyaml, we output that, and if you find pooleMemberRef, you need both the name and the namespace. So here I have US East 4 and the namespace is stream native. So now we're ready to create our service account binding. So I'm going to say snctl create service account binding. And we need to name that service account binding. So I'm going to call it function SA. So this needs to be something different than any of the existing ones. And then the -- service account name. And then this is the name of that service account that we created at the beginning of the video. For us, that was my functions service account. We need the pool member, which we just looked up, which was stream native, was the namespace, and it was US East 4. And then we also do need to put the namespace in stream native, which is your org, so that's OQMCUG. Once you've created the service account binding, we're going to check it, and we're going to say snctl get service account bindings and your org. And here you can see we have our new service account binding.